Right, well, the coronation is really, well, more or less past as we know it. Well, I mean, it's pretty much still going in another way, but the biggest part of the coronation is more or less past, you know, with the King Charles III and Camilla the Queen Consort having been just christened and crowned earlier this afternoon, and then in the aftermath of it, him standing on the Buckingham Palace balcony of the garden balcony of Buckingham Palace, all the rest of that, as would generally happen in a coronation when it happens, which is not very often. And we also had the Royal Trooping March, the Royal Extravagant Trooping March, as well, in celebration for His Majesty King Charles III and Camilla the Queen Consort's coronation celebration event, which was quite really, I must say, drastically thriving into action as we knew it. It was fairly obvious we knew this day would come, and it's come along. 70 years after our late Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, which took place 70 years earlier, as we know. But the coronation, when looking at it, it was not just exciting and important, but it was really emotionally moving, because King Charles, you know, he had to wait so long for this moment to be king. Obviously, it's extremely sad that his mother went, and obviously I didn't think he'd become king until much later, after 2023. I would have thought he wouldn't become king until around about 2031, 2032, something like that, or maybe 2033 or so. But he'd waited so long to be king. I mean, I thought he was going to cry when I saw him on the television, because he looked a little sad. No offence, I'm sure he was happy for the moment, but it looked like he was about to get emotional just before he was about to be crowned. Because, you know, it was just, because the moment, it was so big in his life. It would only happen once in his entire life. In his and his wife's entire life, really, being crowned and having a coronation as big a celebration as was just aired on the television. It was so emotionally moving, which really does show the utmost importance of why we should respect such a day like Coronation Day, since it really does not happen very often, as we all know. And in this enchanted little chariot, it was probably like one of the only times he'd be able to ride in it since his accession of ruling tenure as king in the hierarchical monarch of England, as we know. The hierarchical monarch of England and the royal family bloodlines are always, to me, extremely important to me. They hold some of the most sacred, greatest values of English British history and all that, with an omnipotent king who should be highly respected, and I believe he's going to do incredibly wonderful things, like his mother did before he took the throne, as we know. I think both he and Camilla the Queen Consort would do exceptionally, incredibly wonderful things throughout the entirety of their ruling tenure in the hierarchical monarch of English British history. Obviously he had to go through the sorrowful bereavement of his late father, who sadly passed away in 2021, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and then 1 year later the saddening and sudden and saddening death of his late mother, our late Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who I really honestly thought would go on much longer than that, but never mind. To a platinum jubilee. Absolutely wonderful, and well done her. Could you imagine, say in like 100 years or so, 100, 200 years or so, we would have, say, a king or queen who makes it to the Oak Jubilee and all that. That's a possibility it could happen in the next century or two, when sadly we would all be dead, which would be most terribly awful. But obviously it will sadly have to happen at one point in our lives. there should be one moment where this coronation that's just happened, as well as the coronation that took place 70 years earlier, those kinds of occasional and seldom very often coronations that take place, this day should be a day that should be incredibly well respected and exceptionally well remembered in all due honorary of British history for whoever our hierarchical monarch takes the throne in the reigning tenure of royal family bloodlines and royal duties. It was really, although it was quite really rather long, I must say, it was certainly rather long, the coronation. It was exceptionally interesting and emotionally moving at the same time. Don't worry, I'm not going to cry since we got a new king taking the throne. I'm certainly not going to cry, but it was emotionally, it really was emotionally moving, I must say. Oh, yes. Well, and you know, what a wonderful day Coronation Day of 2023 was. And as we should say, long live the King! Long live King Charles III and Camilla the Queen Consort! Long live our King and Queen Consort, or King and Queen! Long live King Charles III and Camilla the Queen Consort! For Coronation Day of 2023! Long live the King! It was emotionally moving, but it was wonderful and interesting. But it's always good whenever there's a royal event going on. It really should be followed with most respect and all duly kind respectability and all that. Coronation Day and other future royal events, which obviously inevitably happen in our lifetimes, they are always the utmost important things that happen, or could dare happen. But I'm sure, but I would really highly recommend that all take, have all due remembrance of Coronation Day with all due respectability and kindness. As this Coronation Day, there may not be another Coronation Day for a very long time in our lifetime after this one. As you know, most of today's generation was sadly not alive when Coronation Day of 1953, 70 years earlier, took place. Although there are many young adults obviously saw it, those who are alive as of now watching the coronation 70 years later, or children who are alive 70 years later, people who were children at the time of the coronation 70 years ago and still alive 70 years later, I'm sure they would be following it with all due respectability and all that, and I would recommend the same for all people, as they seldom happen very often, Coronation Day as we know it. It seldom happens very often. And I do believe King Charles and Camilla the Queen Consort will last a very long time. I'm certainly highly optimistic of that. Although I sadly don't think they're going to last as long as 50, 60, 70 years, sadly. But I'm confident they're going to make the Silver Jubilee, almost certainly. But thanks everybody all for watching. Here's all due respectability for Coronation Day for His Majesty King Charles III and Her Majesty Camilla the Queen Consort. And as well as best of luck to all of the royal family who may be watching. And long live the King! Long live King Charles III! And God save the King! Long live the King! Coronation Day 2023!